Okay, so chapter 25. What questions do you have here on the parsing? Yeah, let's look at number 5 here. So say this after me. Akaluthican. So akaluthican. Now, what are we looking at here? I have a kappa hanging out over here, right? That could be a perfect formation. What's the lexical form? Anybody have any ideas here? Akalutheo. Good. Akalutheo. What does that mean? This is important to the Gospels. This is something Jesus uses when he summons his disciples. Follow. Yes, follow me. So this is akalutheo, to follow. Now look at the front end of this. I have an eta where my lexical form has an alpha. Now, if you study the chapter, listen to my presentation on this, you know that augments do this, but when a perfect verb needs to reduplicate, if it starts with a consonant, I will double the consonant. But if it starts with a vowel, how will I reduplicate? It's like an augment. I will lengthen it in order to reduplicate it. Now, is it an augment or a reduplication? In the perfect, it's a reduplication. In the aorist and the imperfect, it's an augment, okay, even though it looks the same. So this is possibly, what we're looking at here could possibly be reduplication along with a kappa, okay? And if that's true, then this is the perfect. And when I have a kappa, that can only be perfect active because the perfect middle passive uses what tense formative? Nothing. That's right. It uses no tense formative. It's lay, lu, mai, lay, lu, sai, lay, lu, tai. No kappas at all in the perfect middle passive. Perfect active. And then when you see the epsilon and the movable nu, that's got to be third singular. Okay? So how would we translate this? He, she, or it has followed. Okay? He, she, or it has followed. We can use the English present perfect to do this. Okay, good. So ekaluthekan.
I have a question on abbreviating when we do the tenses. So for perfect, we'll put PFT, and if it's present, we'll put PRE.
You could. I usually just put a P for present, and then I do PFT for perfect. Now, let me just point out here that one of the things that can confuse people is this theta eta here, right? That looks like an aorist passive tense formative, doesn't it? Okay? But what we have is we have akalutheo. So if we know that this is the lexical form, what does the contract vowel do before a tense formative like a kappa? It always lengthens. So in contract verbs, contract vowels lengthen before tense formatives. And so I get this theta eta, but it's for a completely different reason than the aorist passive theta eta. Okay? This is actually part of the stem. Okay? It's not a tense formative. All right. So that was a good one to ask for. Thank you. Any others? So for number 8, we have ake ka'amen. Say that with me. Ake ka'amen. All right. So let's see. Let's start with the easiest thing to identify. What might the men be at the end? First person plural. Oh, something. Something helpful, right? So we know that we're going to translate this as we. All right. That's about all we can say about this that is easy. All right. Note what I have here is I have ak at the front end and ake, which looks like something's been doubled and then lengthened. Okay, this is ak, with lengthening of an alpha to an eta, ak. Okay, what am I looking at here? This is one of those situations where you would be well advised to learn the principal parts. Akuo becomes akeka in the perfect active. Now, what have I got here? So for the ak, right? You see the ak. You see the omicron upsilon of aku. Here you only have the omicron. So that's a vowel gradation where I once had a long omicron upsilon, and it's an omicron here. And then this alpha that I'm seeing, that is a tense formative. Kappa alpha is first perfect. Alpha without the kappa is second perfect. That's what I've got here. This is second perfect active indicative. First person plural. So we have akuoed. We have heard. All right. So if you go back and if you look at your principal parts, when you get to the perfect principal part, which is column 4, you'd see akekoa. Doesn't look very friendly, does it? When you read 1 John chapter 1, very first couple of verses, you will see forms of this verb over and over again. John says, what we have heard from the beginning, so forth and so on. What we have heard, we declare to you. All right. So, there you go. Other questions? Look at number 9 real quickly. We have sesokate. Sesokate. Do you see the reduplication of the sigma separated by the epsilon? And do you see the matching kappa alpha? That's all telltale signs of what tense? Perfect. And which perfect voice gets the kappa alpha? Active or middle passive? Active. Good. The te ending is second plural. So the translation will be you or y'all, right? So what is left is so over here, right? So is from what verb? Yeah, it's from sozo. And what does that mean? To save. So how would I translate this? You have saved. Okay, it's active, so the subject's doing the action. You have saved. All right? Number 2? Okay. Say this with me. Pepistumatha. So what's my lexical form? You know this verb, don't you? Yeah, so pistuo. And what does that mean? To believe. Good. You see the metha? Which person and number is that? First plural. Good. There's nothing in between the pistu and the metha, is there? No connecting vowel, no tense formative, no nothing. And look at the p epsilon before pistu. That is reduplication, isn't it? This is a perfect candidate for what tense? Perfect, but with no tense formative, it is middle passive. And now, what we have to ask ourselves is this. If it is truly passive, then that means that in the active, this is a verb that could take a direct object. Could the active form take a direct object? You can believe something or someone, right? So that's transitive when it's active. Then I can give this a truly passive meaning. So if this is passive, how am I going to translate it? We have been believed. Good. It's also possible for a verb to be middle voice. So I'm going to differentiate these. If it's middle voice, then the subject is performing the action, right? So we have believed. Or some people might translate it as we have believed for ourselves. Okay, so there you go. Anything else here? Look at number 10 real quickly. We have gegraphos. Say that, gegraphos. All right. Do you see the gamma doubled with an epsilon in between? That looks what? Perfect. Good. Okay, now I have graph and os. Okay, graph, os. What's that sigma tell me? Second singular. Very good. Now, do I want to go with active or middle passive here? Yeah, I don't have any middle passive forms where I get to have a sigma hanging out at the end, right? So this is a second perfect, active, indicative. This should have been gegraphos. Okay, gegraphos with a kappa alpha. But the kappa is missing. So that's not first perfect, but second perfect. Okay, and then my verb is from grapho. So how will I translate this? You have written. Good. Now, this is a good time to review something that you learned from the chapter, and that is that since the perfect middle passive doesn't use a tense formative, is there any way for there to be such a thing as a second perfect middle passive? What did we learn about second aorists? Their tense formative is always missing something that the first has. Yeah, but the answer is no, because perfects in the middle passive don't have any tense formative at all, right? So it can't be missing something. Its tense formative can't be missing something that the first perfect has, because it doesn't have a tense formative. Okay, so there's no such thing as a second perfect middle passive. That's only possible in the perfect active. You got first perfect active, second perfect active, but there's only perfect middle passive. All right? Okay, we have a few minutes left for time. Let's just look at the warm-ups, and we'll stop with that, at least here. So, any questions on these? Let's look at zeta here. And let's read this together. Ready? Echamen tauta ha a tekamen abautu. All right. So how did you translate this at the beginning? Yep. Tauta? Yeah, is this singular or plural? That's plural. It's neuter plural. So we have these. These meaning maybe these things, right? Ha. What type of a word is that? This is a relative pronoun. Remember our relative pronouns? These things which a tekamen. What's that? Well, do you see anything here in the middle that might help you with your parsing? The kappa alpha. So that's just perfect, isn't it? Okay. And that's kappa alpha is only used for the active perfect. Men, first plural, right? Now, if this is a perfect, I've got to have reduplication, but I don't have a doubled consonant separated by an epsilon, do I? And that tells me that what I'm looking at is a verb that begins with a vowel that had to lengthen in order to reduplicate. So what I've got here is probably I, where the alpha is lengthened to eta, and the iota has subscripted under it. So this is I teo. Now, take a look at I teo. This is a contract verb, and the epsilon is a contract vowel. What do contract vowels always do before you add a tense formula after them? They lengthen, don't they? So the alpha is going to go to eta, and the iota will subscript, and this epsilon is going to go to eta before I add my tense formative. So you see how that makes this look very different from what we started with. But if you know what these vowels do, it can help you to sort of reason backwards to what you started with. So this is from aiteo, which means to do what? To ask. So here we have these things which we have asked apautu from him. Can we look at gamma? Peplerotai hakairos. Peplerotai hakairos. What do you think the role of hakairos is? It's nominative case, so what's its role? Subject. And then tai is what person and number? Third singular. That would make good sense for that being the subject, right? Now, we have plero with a pet in front of it. That looks like what? Reduplication. But I ain't got no kappa alpha, do I? But that is a middle passive ending. So I would say that's perfect middle or passive indicative, right? Now, what's the lexical form of this verb? Yeah, it's play ra'o. Good. And what does it mean? Okay, good. When it's active, I fill or complete. Here it's perfect and probably passive with the subject. So the time is filled, fulfilled, or completed, or has been filled, fulfilled, or completed. All right. So that's the perfect. I think most of our English translations translate this as the time is fulfilled, and it uses that present tense form because in the perfect, remember, you have an action usually understood as having occurred in the past, but ongoing relevance at the time of speaking. Sometimes the ongoing relevance part of the perfect is so prominent that a present tense translation actually is appropriate. And as an example, in the New Testament, your New Testament writers will frequently say things like this. Ge grop tai gar. Okay, how do you translate that? For, you could say it has been written, but most of our English translations say what? For it is written. Okay. The focus isn't on the pastness of the fact that something was written, but on the fact that it has an ongoing relevance now to the discussion, right? And that's why many times this is translated as a present tense form, even though it technically is a Greek perfect, a passive form. Okay, and then number or letter eta, we have hadidaskalos to kosmu tutu kekratai. This is not a happy thought either. What is hadidaskalos? The teacher. To kosmu is what case? Genitive. So if we put these together, it's what? The teacher of the world. Now look at tutu. What case is that? It's genitive. Why is it genitive case? Well, that's how you know it's genitive, but why did the writer choose a genitive case form? Yes. What kind of word is tutu? Hutas. Yep, comes from hutas haute tuta, which demonstrative? The near or the far demonstrative? It's the near demonstrative, so we're going to translate it as this. And since it's functioning as an adjective, it's got to agree with the noun in case, gender, and number that it modifies. So which world is this teacher the teacher of? It's the teacher of this world, okay? So because it modifies kosmu, it has to agree with it, and it's case, gender, and number. Now, what are we saying about the teacher of this world? We're saying kekratai. Do I have reduplication here? Yep. We got the right vowel between the reduplication. Tai. What personal ending is that? Third singular for what? Active or middle passive? Middle passive. And so we're going to try out the passive nuance if we can just figure out what that lexical form is and what it means. Kri is from krino. Exactly. What does krino mean? To judge. So how would we translate this as a perfect and a passive verb? Has been judged. Am I a teacher of this world? Yeah. Well, I'm in the world anyway, right? So, the teacher of this world has been judged. Yuck. All right. I prefer something like Hatheas tu kasmu tu kekritai. That would be the God of this world has been judged. But I didn't get to write the exercises here, did I? All right. So, shall we move on? Let's take a look at these translation exercises, okay? All right. Any questions about these? So let's look at number 2. Why don't we recite these in unison? Ready? Ap angelan autois hasa ha kurias soy pepoyeken. All right. So here, Mounce is translated apangelan for us. It's a second aorist imperative. Tell autois. Tell them. Good. So tell them. What case is autois? Dative. Good. You see the plural dative here? Ois, the iota sigma. So tell them. Hasa ha kuria soy pepoyeken. Hasa is from hasas. Yeah. The gloss you're given for this is as many as or as much as. We don't have a noun that this accompanies. We've got an alpha here, which is probably a neuter plural alpha. Okay? And when you see the alpha, is that nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative, neuter plural? When you have a neuter that has an alpha at the end, that's neuter plural. I'm just asking about the case that could be. Could it be nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative? Nominative and accusative. That's right. That's right. Now, here it's introducing a kind of relative clause. How many things, neuter plural, the Lord, hakurias, soy pepoyeken. What soy? Don't you dare say sauce. Yeah, this is you in what case? Yep, see that iota there? So that's dative singular. And should I translate it as to you? For you. For you works as well, right? The dative can indicate the recipient. It can indicate for whose benefit something is done. So to, for, with. Those are all possible ways to translate the dative, a dative noun or pronoun. So the Lord for you, pepoyeken. What's the lexical form of this verb? It's poieo. What kind of verb is that if it's got an eo ending? Contract verb. Do I reduplicate contract verbs? Can I? Is there anything that would prevent me from reduplicating the beginning of a contract verb? No, there is nothing that forbids it. In fact, if it's a perfect verb, I'm supposed to, right? It starts with a consonant, right? So I can reduplicate and put an epsilon in between. What happens to the epsilon and other contract vowels before I add tense formatives? They lengthen. Do you see how I've got an eta here after the oi? Pepoye. Okay? And the kappa tells me it's not just perfect, but it's perfect active indicative. And Taylor, with that epsilon instead of the alpha, what person and number is that? Third singular. That's right. Why is it third singular? Because the subject is hakurios, right? So tell them how many things the Lord has done for you.
Can you backtrack? It's third singular because it's nominative singular?
The subject noun is nominative singular, right? The Lord.
That makes the verb.
So the verb has to follow the the number of the subject. So if it had been hoi kurioi, the lords, then this would have had to have been third plural instead of third singular, right? So the subject and verb has to agree. Remember, first person is I or we, second person is you, singular or plural, and then everybody else that's not an I, we, or you is third person. It's just a matter of whether that third person entity is singular or plural. All right. Any other questions on the translation work here? Let's read number 9 here together in unison. Ready? Allah lego humin hati kai Elias eleluthen kai epoyesan auto hasa athelon kathos gegraptai ep auton. All right. So, what does Allah mean? This is a conjunction. However, yeah, that's right. But, lego humin, I say to you, hati, that, kai Elias, that Elias, who is who? Elijah. Now, the kai here is not joining two things like Jack and Jill, Moses and Elijah. It actually goes with just one thing. So I don't want to translate the kai here as and, as a conjoiner, but really more as having an adverbial force. How would I translate that kind of a kai? Yeah, even or also. Okay, that Elijah also, or also Elijah, eleluthen. This is not anything like the lexical form. Who knows what the lexical form of that verb is? Yeah, this is erchamai. Okay, so what is the aorist form of erchamai? Anybody remember the aorist? Erchamai. Elthon. Does that ring a bell? Okay. Does this look like Elthon to you? Not exactly, right? It is related, but it's not the same form. So this is not the present tense. It's not the aorist. Could it be the imperfect? Could it? Well, the imperfect has to use which stem? The present. So it's got to have erk in it somewhere. There's no erk, right? So this must be the perfect. Yeah, more or less. I mean, we could ask ourselves, is this the future? But there's no sigma in here, right? And what would cause the sigma to go away? Well, maybe if it were a liquid future, but we don't really have anything liquid around here. So yeah, this is the perfect, and the perfect is usually going to have kappa alpha if it's active, or nothing, and the misai tai endings if it's middle passive. But I don't have any of those either, do I? What is going on here? Yeah, the first person singular of the perfect active is elelutha. Elelutha. So what do I have here? I've got an alpha where I would have expected a kappa alpha. Okay? Yes. Ah, it's not an augment. So yeah, good question. What's happened is normally you reduplicate by doing what? If you have a consonant, you repeat it before and separate it with an epsilon, right? If it's a vowel, what do you typically do? You just lengthen it. But there are some verbs that reduplicate the entire first syllable, and here the the um, the L has been reduplicated, so it becomes LL, and then the second vowel is lengthened here, so it becomes LL. Okay, so yeah, that's a nasty trick, isn't it? So it looks like an augment, but it is in fact a reduplication. It's just a different kind. Doesn't happen often, but it happens enough for some verb forms that you'll see it, and once you see it a couple times, you'll realize, okay, that's what's going on there. Okay, so this is aleluth, and it should have been aleluth ka, but it's a second perfect. Okay, active indicative. Now, what's the answer for why there's an epsilon here? Well, ka can become k in which person and number? The third person singular. So if I'm missing the kappa for a second perfect, the third singular would be just an epsilon where the alpha was. So eleluthe, and this nu is movable. Okay, so because Elias is the subject and it's a he, third person singular, I've got a third person singular perfect here. Okay, so however I tell you that Elijah has come, he has erkamide. Okay, Elijah has come. And epoiesan auto. Which tense is epoiesan? Sa? Yeah, this is a good old first aorist active indicative. And what do I have when I have the final nu here? That's third plural. And they did auto to him all that athalon. From what verb? This is from thelo, which means to will or wish. So here I have an augment. It's longer than I'm expecting, right? Because my lexical form doesn't have anything. But if you look up thelo in your Mounce grammar, oops, I wrote the wrong letter here. Excuse me. What you'll see is that the real root of this word is ethel. And it's this that is used for the form that we're looking at here. So this is actually an augment. So this is past tense. So they did to him all which they desired or wished. Kathos, just as. And then here's another reduplicated form, gegraptai. So how would we parse this? It's perfect because of reduplication, but it's not active because of the tie, right? So middle or passive, indicative. Tie is third singular. So just as it has been graphoed, it has been written. Epaltan, about him. All right, so that's our translation.